somewhat famous athletes I interviewed for my study on athletes after their high performance careers were over, and including anyone with a physical job, actors, dancers, general contractors, plumbers, ex-military, high school, college, and pro sports athletes, martial artists, etc. And this gentleman, who is featured in my book, The Aging Athlete, he had gone through a period of difficulty in his life where he became his own worst enemy and his family's own worst enemy for a period of time. He had a breakdown, and then he had to take medication after that for different things that became part of his biochemistry of his brain that he didn't know about before the breakdown, but then he found out that it was more severe than he thought. And so he needed to trust me before he spent some time with me on Skype and a recording. This is before we did these Zoom to YouTube videos. And I said, look, I said, it's going to be like two young guys talking in a treehouse. And that's what it is. Whatever pops in, we want to talk about, we're going to talk about it. We're going to honor it. We're going to show integrity. And what you don't want to share to the world, we won't put it out there. I want you to trust me on that. There's nothing I'm gaining here by minimizing something that's important to you. And then he thought of the movie Stand By Me, American movie from the 80s, for those kids who go out and wander around and they run into some trouble and they run into some bullies who are older than they are. They all stuck together, but they had this experience of growth, human development, coming of age. And he said, if that's what you want to do, then I'm all for it. So then we spent, he's the longest interview I've ever done, 5 hours and 20 minutes on Skype. And we went through a good part of his life and his father's life. And we really got to some things that were helpful to him. And that was my Sifu guru side coming out. It takes patience, and it takes the right questions. It takes the right listening, soundboard skills. And we got somewhere. And oftentimes with high performance people, it takes slowing them down. And this conversation allows you and I, it allows you and me to slow down. And that's where you gain in understanding, you gain in human development, you gain in heart open conversations and mind open conversations. And I think one of the things that I critique the modern era is that we don't do this enough. And we don't do it enough with settings that are basic settings, nature, a living room, a back porch, a front porch, really basic settings. When I've talked to people with whom I wanted to get together over the last 25 years, often it's been, let's go out and get something to eat. Let's go out and have a beer. And I, well, there's some connection there, but it's not like the 60s and 70s where you didn't require a meal. You didn't require a bar, a restaurant to go do that, or a cafe. You could do it anywhere. And your walks in the country, I mean, I would love to participate in a walk in your countryside. And I'm looking at the beams and the woodwork and the stonework and the bricks in your home. It looks like a fun place to have a conversation, and have you break out something that you read 30 years ago or a picture from when you were 12 and say, this is something I did with a family member, my dad would have you. And then we go into that for half an hour, and I get to tap into a beautiful experience or a learning experience or a challenging experience that you had that you're now reliving for the benefit of our together moment.
There's so many things in there that I think are important. The first, most obvious response is yes. To move forward, do less. I mean, the only time we have any agency, the ability to achieve anything, is in this moment now. we can plan the future, we can mull over the past, but now is the moment of action. Even if that action is just sitting and thinking. If you are constantly driving forward and filling now with stuff, you never have time to pay attention to the details of the actions you are taking now. And any action that's worth taking is worth spending a little bit of time paying attention to. But we rush through now towards some mythical future which never arrives, and everything we do has the quality of inattention to it because we didn't pay attention to it. And we can move that on and think about, I often talk about there being two fundamentally different modes of learning. And by learning, I don't just mean in an education situation. I just mean learning about life and, doing what we do as we go through life, which is acquiring experiences and knowledge and so on. One way of learning is to discover new things, to acquire new skills. The other way of learning is to notice what we are doing that gets in the way of being able to do what we could do anyway. Connecting, hearing, listening, being part of the natural world, being in relationship with another. These are all things we are born with. They're our birthright. And a crucial way of learning is to stop trying to acquire more and notice what we are doing to prevent ourselves using what we already have. One is the acquisition of skills. The other is the removal of blockage. So I think that's really true. And the other thing that, if you were to be here and we were to sit and go for a walk and, I've got 3,000 books downstairs, spend I love being at somebody's house and say, excuse me for 10 minutes if I don't talk to you, I'm just going to peruse your bookshelf. It's fascinating. We have the opportunity for information to turn into understanding or knowledge. And we then have the opportunity for understanding and knowledge to turn into wisdom. And you don't acquire wisdom by constantly learning new facts.